Hi, this is Dave from Free Run Speed. Going to talk a little bit about another comment that came off Seth James Demore's video. Same one on the Saucony Endorphin Speed. He asked the question, how much are you willing to spend on a pair of racing flats? And the comments below came through and it made me laugh because it's exactly the way runners react and have been since running shoes first came out in the 70s during the running boom. And I'm going to talk about that today, and I'm going to give you a little bit of information on how the price is developed, what goes into the cost of the shoe, how that is done, and then how does the price get developed. First, I'm going to talk about the runners. So there are basically three types of buyers. There's the buyer that most of the shoe reviewers are talking to. The reason why shoes are designed and developed in the first place, you want to be first to the market. You want to be the first one to get the Endorphin Pro. You might even spend more money on eBay for it. Okay? So that's number one. Number two is the runner who appreciates what the brands are doing, appreciates new product, is willing to spend the money to get the best running shoe for their type of running. Doesn't have to be first to market, but is willing to spend the money to get the best shoe and understands that the brands are trying to make a better shoe every single time. And that's the bulk. That's most of running shoes sold by far. And then there's the runner that only buys a shoe when it's on sale. And I can tell you, you never buy anything at full price. Doesn't matter. It's not a running shoe. It could be anything. You never buy anything at full price. You got into running because it's easy and inexpensive in general. You probably don't even belong to a gym. So given all that, we're going to start talking about the shoes and how they get priced. And yes, shoe prices are going up. There's new innovations. You know, Nike was probably looking at iPhones and saying, hey, I want a piece of that. So they developed a shoe, the fastest shoe on the planet, and charged $250 for it. The market reacted and bought it. So those kinds of prices are going up. We're seeing more shoes like that, more expensive shoes like that. But in general, the regular price of shoes is also going up, and there's a reason for that. And I'm going to dive into that after I take a shower. Let's start with what's not in the retail price of your running shoes. Brands are businesses. They're in the business of making money, making profit, increasing shareholder value, all the same things as any other big business. So yes, indirectly, the sale of a running shoe has to pay for all of their expenses. The facility, the athletes, the employees, the insurance, everything. But the product team, when they are looking down at the next shoe, they are not thinking about that. They are not thinking about paying for everything that's around them. They are only thinking about the market, what's out there in the market, what are the retail prices out there in the market today, and the cost of that shoe. How do I get that shoe that we're developing this exact retail price to compete against this other shoe? So indirectly, everything is involved. Directly, there is a set direct cost to building a running shoe. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. There are two really big costs that go into building a running shoe. The first starts early, and that is the mold price. Because to build this midsole and a few other pieces, you need to design a mold. And then to build the shoe into sizes, you need different molds all the way across. So for this TPU piece, there may be 3 or 4 molds that are used. For this midsole, there could be 6 molds or it could be 15 molds. It all depends. and that's expensive. The direct costs are not applied upfront into the shoe. They are usually amortized throughout the number of pairs that they expect to make. But it's a big cost. So let's use just the EVA, just this piece, which is one mold. To build that shoe, it's probably somewhere around $140,000 to $150,000 in mold costs just to get this shoe, just to get that midsole made. The second really big cost is labor. And it takes, I've been in the factory where this shoe is assembled. And in that factory, based on the type of construction that I see here, there are roughly 32 to 34 sets of hands that touch this shoe, and every single pair of these shoes created, whether it's stitchers or people that trim and buff the midsoles to get them ready, people that trim and buff the outer soles to get them ready. There's that many sets of hands that touch the shoe, and that's a big cost. And recently, as you know, China, where a lot of the shoes are built, or at least developed and sourced, a lot of the materials are sourced there, China's moved into a middle class, and that has raised labor costs. So the brands had to do things to cut costs out of shoes to make sure that they could give you the same price. So what you've seen over the last 10 years is a total reduction in the number of pieces in a running shoe. There used to be TPU bridges right here, but thanks to minimalism, building a flat sole was okay, so gone was the TPU bridge. That was a mold cost and a piece cost. Upper materials, I talked about going to a knit upper. That takes 15 people off the assembly line. I don't know exactly the number, but it's a large number of people that it takes off the assembly line. Now, it does cost money to buy the knitting machines, but once those knitting machines are in place, then you don't have the labor costs. So there's been a lot of things done to running shoes to keep the prices low, so that the labor costs don't affect the price to you. Okay, so that's the two really big costs. Like, they show up on the cost sheet, and it's substantial. Let's use the Shift as an example. There's lots of questions about the midsole. It's a power run midsole. It's a compression molded EVA based midsole. Questions come out, why isn't it Power Run Plus? It's $140. Why doesn't it have Power Run Plus? Well, the mold cost on Power Run Plus and the material cost on Power Run Plus is dramatically more expensive. So I don't know if Saucony decided, you know what, we can't make this $140 using Power Run Plus, or they made the decision, this is the feel that we want to get out of this midsole. Whatever it was, they chose Power Run. Everything after those two big costs is material cost. So this Shift, from what I can tell, has 1, 2, 3, 4 types of mesh. It's not just the sandwich mesh that's on the upper. There are 4 different types of mesh being used. That's 4 separate suppliers probably, or I mean, it's very rare that you have one supplier that can provide everything. So it's probably 4 separate suppliers, or at least 3 separate suppliers. There's a lace supplier. Again, they chose this specific lace. It has a cost. There are welds on every single eyelet. There is a weld on here. So you have the price of the weld itself, the material, and then you have the price of the actual welding, the process of welding. There's a Strobel board. There's an insole. Insole is done somewhere else. It's a specific insole. It matches the last that Saucony is using. So they had to develop this insole to go with the shoe. But it's a different supplier. It's a different mold. And I didn't talk about outsole. You got outsole rubber. That's a totally separate mold that has to be done. And if they're using two different types of rubber, it's two different molds. What we've seen, and I'll use the Saucony Ride or the Brooks Ghost as the example, we've seen that price creep up. That shoe used to be $110, and then it became $120, and it stayed at $120 for a long time, and now it's $130. And the two major reasons for that price increase is labor and shipping, or oil. It costs more to move stuff around, and so yes, you could say the price of materials is going up, but it's not dramatic. It's shipping and labor. Labor is the biggest one, and it's getting harder and harder to find cheap labor. Simple term. It's getting really hard because it can't just be cheap. It has to be quality. You deserve a quality running shoe. So it has to be someone that really knows how to build a running shoe. And you can't just go to any country and train someone to build a running shoe. It just doesn't work. In fact, I've actually been involved in test studies of doing that, and it doesn't work very well. You need experts. And so that cost of labor is going up. So that's why the price of that Brooks Ghost is going up. Now, 130 seems to be, it's going to stabilize for a while. There's no doubt about it. It's not going to go to 135 or 140 very soon. I didn't know that this was going to go so long, so we're going to make this into a two-part video. This is the end of part one. Tomorrow or the next day, part two will take up from here, and we'll finish this off. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you're enjoying the tutorial of basically how shoes are made. If you have questions, leave comments below. I'd be happy to get back to you. Have a great run today.